Hello and most welcome to Heidegger 1446 of the series. And we will continue with the text of Hans Ruin, Circumcising the Word. Derrida as a reader of Paul. And we have previously dwelt into autoimmunity and autoimmunal suicidal tendency. And those could be shortened as seen as we're trying to get rid of differences within the thinking system, could be within a book, it could be the general discourse. And thereby we are not allowing contradictions and differences to come into the system. And we cause an internal battle, a so-called autoimmune reaction. Those are things that are not completely uncommon. Today we are in modern society plagued with infirmities that are autoimmune, attacking the system, making the system work less, and attacking one's own constituents. We are embedded in allergies, asthmas, autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, I think I mentioned. It's very hard to tell somatic autoimmune tendencies or attacks from what would be called psychic or mental or intellectual. They are mainly the very same, having similar effects. With that little introduction, I will continue on page 86. I am currently on the second paragraph. And just to remind me, we have discussed Paul Celan, the Jewish poet and writer. And we are into circumcision. The ancient practice of male circumcision has been documented in many different cultures and religions. From classical Egypt and onward. According to Jewish myth, it was issued as a command from God to Abraham in order to seal the covenant. Thee shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. To be circumcised is to be part of a chosen community. It is a sign cut into the body to confirm a pact. In the next passage, God declares that whoever is not circumcised in his body shall have his soul cut off from his people. In this ominous legend, the connection is thus established between individual and community. This is, of course, very informed, very important. And remember the shibboleth. To be circumcised is a token to get into the community, the group. God declares that whoever is not circumcised in his body shall have his soul cut off from his people. Very In this ominous legend, the connection is thus established between individual and community, flesh and spirit, sign and pact. The circumcision is what establishes and enables community, but also what initiates exclusion and violence. My comment here, do you remember the shibboleth? We can thereby sense how it recalls a similar logic as in the story of the password. It is a sign. It is a sign. Sealed in the body, which gives one away, and that is part of the constitution of community. For a thinker like Derrida, who throughout his writing career was preoccupied with analyzing and questioning limits, borders, and communication as both belonging and exclusion, always both, very important. It is always both taking part in the same strong movement. It is not one, it is both, is my comment. And being both does not exclude the one. Do remember that. a special background resonance for the philosophical significance of circumcision is found in Paul. It is in Romans that we read the famous line, "For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter." So very important. This image concentrates the force and logic of Paul's message in all its ambiguity, both in respect to the law and to the possibility of a universal bond between God and mankind. The privilege of the special covenant between God, Abraham, and the Jewish people is here both problematized and expanded. The physical circumcision does not guarantee lawfulness. For in order to take part in the law and thus in righteousness, one needs to pay tribute not to outer signs, but to let one's heart and soul be circumcised. This is important. One need to let one's heart and soul be circumcised. It is not a sheer token in the flesh. It goes all the way down into the soul, into one's heart. That is extraordinarily important. It is not just a sheer physical act of cutting off the foreskin. It is going into the soul to be inside the covenant, to be a part of the group discourse. Later in Romans, Paul writes that also in the original case of Abraham, his justification in the face of God did not come about through his circumcision. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the faith, which he had yet being uncircumcised. Even though the letter implies that Abraham was also justified through his inner circumcision, not through his outer sign. Paul's interpretation of the event of Christ establishes the new faith as a new and more radical inscription and internalization of the law in the body of man. Paul's interpretation, and listen now, of the event of Christ establishes the new faith as a new and more radical inscription and internalization of the law in the body of man. The insistence on the circumcision of the human heart rather than that of the male sex contributes metaphorically and concretely to carving out a specific Christian ethos in the making. And do pay attention to the word carving. It's no coincidence that the very word carving is used here. Do you remember Barbara Tversky, how we think metaphorically, abstractly? It is done by doing it. It is not this inner private language thought or intention. It is actually done. But in doing so, it also ingeniously lays the conceptual cornerstone for a theologically motivated anti-Judaism. But in doing so, it also ingeniously lays the conceptual cornerstone for a theologically motivated anti-Judaism. As a religion of the law of a closed community represented by the outer bond, the circumcised penis, Judaism will eventually be set against the supposedly more universal comportment of Christianity based on inner sentiment. This is very important. Or the circumcised heart. As an eminent post-Holocaust poet, Paul Celan is also a witness of where this logic would lead. In the view of the disaster of the Christian Jewish constellation in modernity, Derrida's choice of circumcision as his main interpretive scheme for reading Celan is in this respect not incidental. Not incidental. Very important here. When discussing the extension of the metaphor of circumcision in Shibboleth, Derrida also explicitly recalls Paul. When discussing the extension of the metaphor of circumcision in Shibboleth, Derrida also explicitly recalls Paul. He remarks that the extension of the circumcision beyond the surgical act to a more spiritual sense of circumcision does not date Paul. He then mentions several examples of how circumcision is used as a metaphor already in Exodus 6:12 to 30. At one point, Moses worries that Pharaoh will not listen to him since his lips are uncircumcised. And also in Leviticus, there is a passage that mentions uncircumcised hearts. So you see here already long before This has to some extent been established. And I think of uncircumcised hearts as hearts not open to difference and oppositions, nor dichotomies, locked in the sphere of position or positivity. Already at this stage, circumcision is used to designate a more general token of community, understanding, and communication. Already at this stage, circumcision is used to designate a more general token of community, understanding, and communication. Derrida then goes on to specify different meanings of circumcision as also the sign of also the sign or shibboleth of a covenant and an experience of salvation and purification. All this is developed around the line from Celan, quoted in the motto above, for him circumcise the word. And now we're coming into the most interesting part of this. It is the actual word that is circumcised. At this very turning post, a significant part is happening. We are entering into the very specificity of the article, but also in what circumcision is. We now dwell intensely into the very zest of it. It is a shibboleth of the flesh. It is a shibboleth of the word, circumcising the word, but also being the word. And I will take a little pause here in the recording and continue in a break with the summary. I will be back in a few minutes here. Sorry. We continue the recording. We're now playing once more. And as I mentioned before, we have now moved from the word as a token, as in shibboleth, which is either an opening door to the other side of the world. And now I get an Nescafe. Oh, look at that. Thank you very much. Milk or something? Maybe a little bit, yeah, sure. And show the viewers what a nice coffee I got. Nice and foamy. Shibboleth is the opener, but it can also lead to disaster. It has in itself the potentiality for both advancement, progression, and destruction. And the same can be said about the circumcision as a physical act. It can positively destroy the person, lead to his demise, but it could also be an opener, sort of enforce something positive. Lead to an opening. So the word has this double feature, it has both sides. Both sides we mentioned many times before, as in the wave and the particle in quantum mechanics. They are the most contradictive forces within all of cosmos, within all of the world, mathematically, physically, and abstractly as well. The inner, which is mentioned here, which is the ikere, so to speak, in the development of the Jewish religion, can be seen, and this is how I first understood it, my first take. It was going from an only act of physical circumcision as the only token. The decisive step was the physical act of removing the foreskin. But already in Leviticus, there is a turn to speak to uncircumcised hearts. And I reckon those are closed off hearts, hearts that are not open, not inviting spirituality that is both inner and outer. And it's this decisive step Christianity is born within, of taking in also the inner. But somewhere in this movement there is a disbalance, and I think that could be one of the reasons for to dislike or Paul. It becomes sheer innerness. It becomes also a sort of upside turned token. All of a sudden you should not be circumcised because it is only the inner that counts. That cheeriness is aching, I would say, very similar to the turn within general conception of Christianity as something only inner, which I think Paul is the biggest example of, or the clearest example of. In this, a disbalance starts. Disbalance, and everything is all of a sudden only inner. The outer becomes disregarded. It becomes Judaism with their outer circumcision and also with their sectarian rituals, their Shabbat, everything outly, very strict. And there is a struggle between those who only adheres to the inner. And to the ones of the outer. This wound in the religion, now also in people's hearts, needs to be healed and can be healed. It can be brought together, and I think that has been a recurring theme in our lecture series. How to heal the inner and the outer from being two opposing pairs that sort of reduces each other to nothingness. How many people doesn't say that Judaism is sheer outwardness, sheer ritual, lacking the inner, with a specific clothing, that prayer system, a very strict order in the churches, in the temples, in the synagogues, in the daily living, even when it comes to the way they eat and what they eat. Not mixing milk with meat, not eating pork, and many, many other things. That contrasted with Christianity's sheer innerness. That belief is something only in the circumcised heart, if you like. You could actually call that the Pauline twist in Christianity, the turn by the Apostle Paulus, getting more and more inner. Completely disregarding the outer, not taking in the outer at all, and even despising it. it is actually not very hard to see a growing discontent and animosity between the two groups here already at the Apostle Paul's sayings, how they sort of go in different direction or perceived different directions. One going more and more to the, what I would say, Greek direction of innerness, more and more in inner, refining the inner and believing in the inner as the true core of faith only, despising the outer. Pure matter, of course, there could be some objections here. Somebody could raise his finger and say, hey, the Greeks, they also produce materialism. Remember Democritus. Remember the Ionian philosophers of nature, the physicos. It is not so much whether it is reductionism, materialism, or the Democritian turn, or the fixation with the other side. I think these two tendencies are the same. It's a tendency of inner fragmentation. It's the, if you like, autoimmune disease, to use a strong word here. Sorry for the harshness, but it was coming from Paul Sagan and Hans Ruin himself. Both reductionism and the innerness, the Platonic innerness, if you like, which is also a transcendental wish for purity of thoughts, of ideas. This In this context, I also think clearly or relevantly of Immanuel Kant, who sort of purifies the whole world in categories without difference, shape, or ruggedness, or fractality, if you like, something we mentioned. And then he ends up with a system of clear, disjunct notions of reality. And why not David Hume with his ideas, very good here, of pure ideas and impressions. And the impressions are, so to speak, the photographic imprints of reality or what you're doing. I think all these tendencies run parallel. It needs to be a sort of symbiosis instead, a taking in of the outer and joining it with the inner. Maybe there is a fear as well here. We have earlier mentioned horror vacui, and the idea that if we take in emptiness or absence, as Terence Deacon call it, we think that we're going to lose out, and therefore we cling even more to either the inner or the outer, and we cannot come to resolution. We cannot go further. We come to a stopping point. And I think this is why in the article, this is so excellent to go from a word, shibboleth, to the physical act of cutting off the foreskin, the circumcision, and seeing that the physicality and the higher abstract are deeply connected in the development of Christianity. It's also here where more clearly Judaism and Christianity take different routes, distancing themselves from each other, becoming fierce enemies instead of brethren. Reminds me of a saying of the late Edward de Bono, that the logic we created, well, especially a logic that takes contradiction as its foundation, has led to many conflicts in the world, many wars against brethren, against bordering nations, because of this fixation of the word as, I would say, as monosemic, having only one meaning. It's not hard to see how that can amount to conflict. I was summarizing quite well. I really like the text. I more clearly now see where it's going. It is most enlightening, and I will now take notes from my dear colleague, Kalle Lundgren here, and see what he wrote. I just read from the chat directly with your permission. As you noted, carving is a key word in this paper by Hans Ruin. Paul emphasizes the inner person at the expense of the outer. That lays the foundations of theologically motivated anti-Judaism. We can get around this anti-Judaism by balancing the inner and the outer. We can do so by thinking about this word carving and juxtapose it to Escher's drawing hands. Say the left hand is the inner person and the right hand is the outer person. We need both. Oh, yes, fantastic. It's exactly. Both hands are needed. And taking one hand away will not make this hand any stronger. Actually, if I would to have only one hand or one arm, this left hand would be weaker because it is founded on a unity, my corporal body. 85% of the strength of the hand and the arm are coming from the core, and the core is unified. That is something that is coming from Raymond Dart. We need the core to make the hands strong, stable, to be able to do fine motorics, but also strength in lifting things, walk about. It is all coming from the core. But as you can see, they are opposing. Left and right doesn't even match. You see, they are spiraling against each other. They don't have sameness. Internal sameness does not exist in hands. This is called chirality. Very interesting here. An important concept in chirality. It's an important concept in physics, chemistry, but also within our bodies. I hope I spelled that right. I'm quite certain I did. And that is, how is something spirally organized? It could be anti-clockwise and it could be a clockwise. All the way down to the quantum level. This anti-clockwise and clockwise is the most important feature. It is foundational. And by saying the hands are the same or saying that they are opposing, listen carefully now, those both tendencies will take away the chirality, the spirality. It is better to let them be opposing, but still taking them in at the very same time. And indeed, I do agree that Escher's hands are the key, so to speak, or an opening feature to let the two opposing pairs play together or dance together, because the chirality is a dance. It is a moving thing. You see that? A spiral, even if it's steady, it has movement. It's very close actually to, well, I'm being very creative today here. Maybe it's the coffee. Very close to the eternity symbol, the Lemmings Gate of Stephen M. Rosen. There you have a chirality, there you have a spirality, where once you look at that, you can understand and you can skip your fear, your horror vacui. And by that, you take it in and you get this peace in the system. A stillness, but it is a stillness that doesn't take away the movement. Yes, very good. The next phrase of Kalle here, instead of a pen, as in Eschen's lithograph, I think you are all familiar with that lithograph, you can place a scissor in both hands. And the scissors do both the inner and outer circumcision. Excellent. Yes, yes, very good. Fantastic. Such a good point. I think we end here. If Kalle is okay with that.
Yes, thank you so much.
It was amazing. I will linger on here. I will send you a link so we can just have a chat, but I will end this session here and now and wish you all a very pleasant morning or afternoon wherever you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.